Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the evolution of democracy in the Middle East, or the evolution of the Arab Spring. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about some of the developments in countries in the Middle East that have been in the process of moving toward democracy, Dr. LMadu. And Dr. LMadu, let me welcome you to the show this morning and to tell you how delighted we are to be here this morning with you. And we hesitated because we were thinking about the states that have been involved in a real sense in what we call the Arab Spring. And we find that there has been some movements toward democracy in all of these areas, but you also have some additional information to talk about in addition to the evolution of democracy and other things. Let's start off by having you to give us an idea in terms of the states that we're talking about and where democracy might stand in some of these states.
Thank you. Well, in the past few months, maybe 18 months or so, there has been a lot of changes in the Middle East. We've had 6 attempts, to topple the governments in that part of the world. Bahrain, Libya, Yemen, Egypt, Tunisia, and Syria. Out of these 6, 4, have been successful. Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, and Yemen. Bahrain wasn't successful, because Saudi Arabia and the United States were interested in keeping the regime there intact. Syria is still undergoing a lot of political convulsions, and nobody can predict the outcome. However, given the circumstances, one can say that the Arab Spring has been successful in that most of those countries, that have succeeded in removing, long-term governments have had peaceful democratic elections, which is very commendable. One should understand that most of those governments, that have been toppled, have been in power for 2 to 4 decades, So it's a historic occasion, for those who live in that part of the world, and also for the overall strategic interests of the United States. Now, one will say, well, how did all this start and why? Of course, one doesn't need to go far to see that in Egypt, you've had a government that's been there since 1981, Mubarak's regime. That's a long time to be in power, with all the economic problems that has beset Egypt. In Yemen, Ali Abdullah Saleh was there for about 33 years. That's a very long time to be in power. In Tunisia, the president was in there for over 20 years, and in Libya, Muammar Gaddafi has been there since 1969. So you can see the longevity of the regimes made it, possible for people to get very ready for a regime change. Most of the youth in these countries are, were never born really when these people came in power. So they needed change.
Been in power as long as they were of age.
Absolutely. So they needed change. In Syria, Assad has been there since 2000. When his father, who came to power in 1970, died. So that has, there for over 30-some years. Now, what has happened now is that those 4 countries that successfully, got rid of their leaders have undergone peaceful transitions. First, Tunisia, all the problems started in Tunisia. And Tunisia had the first elections last year in October. They elected an Islamic party as a leader of the country. In Egypt, an Islamist, Mohamed Morsi, also won. But in Libya, the Liberal parties won, not an Islamic party. In Yemen, that was a different case altogether. Now, Bahrain and Syria are still on hold. Now, what are the implications of the elections?
And of course, Dr. Madu, let us take this first commercial break, and I think that this is a good point to stop. And then when we come back, we'll allow you to get into the implications of these successful elections on Middle East politics as well as the world. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.